I was at the gym earlier, which of course I am 5 days a week, unless I have an appointment or something, and for some reason I can't make it, which is very rare. I try and set appointments later or the things I need to do so I can go to the gym. Obviously, I'm not saying everybody has to go to the gym. There are some amazing benefits with it, though. Obviously, it's not dairy that helps your bones. In fact, dairy's bad for your bones. I can go into that if you guys want me to in another video, but lifting weights, not only does it create a decent impact on the strength of your body and how it looks, it also builds the strength to your bones and just gives you that good foundational framework, especially as we get older and things get more delicate. And it's an interesting process, again, depending on how old you are as you're watching this. I remember even when I was a kid in comparison to now. Now, the thing that's interesting is from a health perspective, I feel better now than I did back then. I live better. I live more in keeping with health and longevity. I didn't know those things back then. It wasn't something I even considered, and most kids don't. But I remember my body being a lot more flexible. You know, it's gotten better since I've been doing the sports I do and keeping myself active. But before I started doing that, I started to notice my body getting more and more stiff, which is an interesting process. I always used to look at older people and think, when they get stuck, their body gets stuck in positions and they can't really move out of it. I always wondered how that happened. Like as a young person, I always thought, how does that actually happen? How do you just get stuck like that? And then as you get older, you start to feel your body get more stuck. And then it starts to make sense. You go, oh, they stopped moving. And they ended up in, and this is the thing that's interesting as human beings, and again, this gets way deeper. And there's obviously I don't know all the technical terms, but I think it's somatic healing. But basically, it's our repetitive ways that we hold our body. Now, this can be lots of things. It has to do a lot with your self-love and your self-worth, like how you carry yourself. In terms of astrology and human design, numerology, it can show as the types of things you're interested in, the types of things that you think, the ways that you do things and why. All of this stuff might also play into how that's going to look and how that's going to come across. But a big part is, it could just be our experiences, our wounds, our traumas, and we carry them in our body rather than facing them. It's a multi-level interesting point. But I find if you don't find a way to keep your body moving in some description, and obviously the more the better, and the different types, it's good to sort of do that weightlifting to give your body its sort of stability and strength framework, but also things that are more movement based. So, whether that's yoga or Pilates or, swimming or just some kind of sport where you're moving a lot more. Again, it depends on the person. It depends on maybe you've had other existing injuries and there's things that that you can't do, and that's completely fine. It's about being aware of those things. I know recently, because I used to love running, but recently I've heard that, and we kind of all knew this, people who run a lot, it grinds the gears too much. It's too rupturing, that impact of constantly having your feet hit the ground and then the resistance, the shock waves summed up through the legs to the knees to the hips. Over time, this can sort of wear you down a bit. So running isn't really the best. Obviously, finding ways that you can get that cardio without the slam impact is going to be better, especially if you're only just recently deciding to start some sort of fitness. It's better to start things that are a little bit more low impact. So again, it depends, starting with low weights if you want to start the gym, or going swimming or yoga, like something that helps you extend. And Pilates is really good. Pilates kind of combines both the concept, and again, it's more like reformer Pilates, where they use the machines. But it's this whole idea where you use your body, its core is what helps you create this muscle, as well as the flexibility and the stretch like yoga. So quite a good sport. I don't actually do it myself. I've considered doing it, but I already do too many sports and I'm struggling to fit them in as it is. So again, it depends what kind of person you are. If I could do, if I didn't need sleep, right? If I didn't need sleep, I didn't need downtime, and I didn't have I didn't have anything else to do, right? I would happily probably do like six sports as well as the gym. And that probably sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I like it. And I think it's good. I mean, if not, I'm not expecting everybody to have the same energy level that I do. Very few people do, and that's okay. But it's the understanding of know your body, know what you need. And there's so many benefits, not just the endorphins and all the rest of it, but you're using up nervous energy. And again, you might not be a, over the top overthinker. I know I am, so I have to use that energy or I start to overthink. But you're still going to a little. And if you have a lot of that downtime where you're just sitting there in your head, it gives you the chance to overthink and, maybe overthink things that are not very healthy or very good for you. But it's that understanding of knowing what what it is and what level you need to do depending on your mental and emotional state, the way that your body works, all of it, right? So that's what I'll always say. And again, all the longevity experts, all the health experts will talk. This is not new information. It's so important. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Even if you've put on a lot of weight and you're worried about what people will think or if you'll be able to keep up. None of that matters because everybody's on their own journey. And if somebody has a problem with that, that's their problem. You've gotten up, you've done something, you're working towards something, and that should be commended. A lot of times when it comes to weight, people will carry extra weight because of trauma. It's often, especially around the middle, it's like and this is, I think that's somatic healing, if I remember correctly, can go into that a little bit. But we carry weight in specific areas because that's where we need extra protection, or at least the perceived idea of needing extra protection there. But sometimes we can hide behind these things. I did create the wound healing readings. I prefer this to basically you as an individual. If you have wounds that hold you back, and keep you from doing all the things you want to do, it's definitely worth facing those things, figuring out where they came from and why and how they affect you. And I would look at your chart. I would look at your, either human design, astrology, numerology, something. And I would look at those to help you discover where all this started, why, what the reasons were behind it, and the lessons you can learn from it so that you don't stay stuck. Also, I think I created a health reading as well. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be. I've got a background in beauty therapy, which means that I can talk about health. I can talk about lifestyle. It is part of my qualification. So I used to talk about that when I was a therapist, and I would help people with their skin conditions. So there's no reason why I can't use those skills for this sort of work also. Again, if you have some kind of health condition or whatever, it's probably best to not even necessarily go to doctors, but people who know about nutrition, people who know about ways of healing the body's illnesses and issues, right? There's like plant-based doctors and stuff like that, and longevity experts who know a bit more about these things. Whereas your more traditional sort of doctors, they're going to take more of the medication. I mean, I think it's changing a little bit, but nutrition is not a big component of the medical industry. They're still quite behind the times. And look, again, it's debatable, but there is some documentation that it changed to go that direction in more critical care rather than preventative care because of, this, that, or the other. If that's an interest of yours in terms of big pharma and whatever, I can talk about those things at another stage, but I don't want to talk about that so much in this video. But all of these things tie up, and it's kind of you can't have one without the other situation, right? So when you work out and you take fitness seriously, whatever way you choose, you start to want to eat better as a reflection of that because you feel better. A lot of times people have really, really bad dietary habits because they're sedentary. They're sitting down too long. They're not doing, they're not being. So you already feel lazy and you don't feel well anyway. So why not just sit there and snack on things that are not good for you? Whereas when you're working towards something, and you start to see changes in your body and in your mentality and your mind and whatever, you start to not have those types of cravings anymore. It just isn't something that your body craves because now you're on a trajectory of health. It takes time. I'm not saying that you go to 2 gym sessions and then all of a sudden, those cravings are gone. It's a journey. It's a transformation, and you have to allow it. And when you do allow it, things start to change. That's just the way it is. So it's worthwhile being open to that. I am going to create a video where it's, again, I haven't decided. I might break it up into a few. They are all related, but I feel like there's also specific differences with them. So I am thinking I probably will break them up, but I was thinking like self-worth, self-love, self-respect, self-healing. All of these kind of fit into this, and I would talk about them. And I want to give practical tips, like things that you can actually do to change these dynamics so that you can have the things that you want. You can be the things that you want at any age. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm not, 22 anymore. Well, the thing that's interesting about 20-year-olds is that they haven't fully understood, there's this sort of delusion from childhood into the 20s, that you'll always look the way that you do in your 20s. You're always going to be this way. And it's kind of like you have blinders on, and that's why there's this fear about turning 30, because it's almost like you drop off the face of the planet. But the reality is, I don't know, in my experience anyway, that's when things start to get better. Because when you're a kid, you're under the discretion of your parents. And if your parents are screwed up, well, you got to endure that, don't you? In your teens, you're starting to kind of branch off a little bit. You're getting a taste of what potentially your life could be like. In your 20s, it's tumultuous. You now don't have your parents sitting over you, breathing down your neck anymore. But at the same time, now you're responsible for all these things you weren't responsible for before. So this whole thing, it's like you're walking down a tunnel, but there's no light. You can't see. So you're just sort of trying to feel your way through and discover as you go. Which, this isn't bad. It's just sometimes you don't make the best decisions because you can't see where you're headed. You can't see that you could potentially trip on a rock or something that you didn't see in the dark, and now you've fallen and twisted your ankle. I know these are probably extreme examples and weird sorts of stories, but I think it helps. Storytelling is such a great way of exploring new ideas and new potentials because it makes it more fun. And it's the more visceral you make it, which is why I often will use descriptions. Like I'll in my storytelling, I'll often explain, the darkness or the lightness of something. Maybe the dampness or the smell or, just something to evoke the senses so that you feel like you're there. And I try and do that because it just makes it more fun. And so that's why I talk the way I do. That's why I discuss the things I discuss. And in terms of this podcast, I'd like I want it to be fun. I want it to be something people want to watch and people want to sort of go, oh, I didn't really consider that, or I've heard something similar, but that's a different take. I hope, anyway. And obviously at the end of it, for people to make better decisions to live the life they want to live, really. Or the life they never dreamed of living. Like, that'd be even better. I like that even more. So yeah, I thought that'd be a good start. And like I said, I introduced some more of the readings that I offer. But obviously I have plans. I want to make a whole bunch of videos that are more general. And I can struggle with general. I do prefer more specific. But there are some general practical things that can be done to improve both yourself and your life. But I'll leave that with you. And I'll come back and do another video where we talk about more fun topics. And like I said, we'll just see where it takes us.